Gentlemen, it's Charlie Fibrosis, and today I wanted to talk about something that I think is rather interesting and I feel kind of needs to be discussed either way. I think it's rather important in how racing in the US, at least, and especially in NASCAR, has kind of gone, and my proposition as to how to fix it. So let me just get a couple of things up and we can start talking about all of this and we can go on to the video discussion. So let me get my core ideas out. So let's go here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Race Points Manager. This is a program available for NR 2003. It's a little clunky, but it works okay. Another option out there is Score 4, which I've tried to use in the past a little bit. I'm personally a little bit more familiar with RPM though, and this is what I want to talk about. So, last night at about 2 o'clock in the morning, this thought just kept nagging me in the back of my head. To give a little bit of backstory, is after the Homestead race, me and a group of friends who we've all raced against one another, and we all have kind of varying ideas of NASCAR and what it should be and what it is and everything else of the sort. We started talking about the sport, and we all agreed. Yes, we were happy that Joey Logano won the championship. I'm not a massive Logano fan, but I will say that I do absolutely respect the guy for winning the championship. I do have to give him that. What I will say, however, is this. The way we got to Joey Logano winning the championship, that is something I fundamentally have a problem with. Now, I'm not going to be angry about this. This is just my personal take, okay? So let's talk about this. What do I think is absolutely wrong with the NASCAR point system as it stands on December 1st of 2018 as of this past season? Here's a few things I want to talk about. Here's the core ones that I can talk about. Some of them will be discussed in the video. Others, they're kind of brief and we'll go over it. Number one, I'm not a big fan of stage racing. That doesn't mean that I don't like stage racing at all. I'm just not a big fan of it, and I'm not a fan of how it's implemented. I think the fact that leading laps and leading the most laps and leading at the halfway point of a race, because those no longer matter, you do need something to kind of incentivize the drivers to push to get points. However, I think the ratio of 10 points to the stage winner all the way down to 1 stage point for the 10th place finisher is a little bit too big, because 11th on back in turn do not get any stage points, and they could lose it by just a little bit. So it's kind of a win some you lose some in that situation. Stage racing can be interesting, I will honestly state, but I don't think that it exactly fits with NASCAR, in my opinion. It's something that I've always had a bit of an issue with. In addition, I don't really like, in addition to the stage racing, I'm not a fan of the fact that the caution flies at the end of a stage. And the reason why I feel that is the case is because I know, especially in the Cup Series, there are more laps to complete in between stages. But I will also state a problem is that when you're a crew chief and you have a guaranteed design caution, that will allow you to come and pit, make adjustments that you need to, and everyone else is going to do the exact same thing. You have a strategy that is forced upon you, and you really can't dance around it too much, especially considering that you can't pit on the white flag of that particular stage. It just doesn't exactly feel right, and the lengthy caution too. I know that the races are scheduled to their distance, so if the race is 400 laps, it needs to be 400 laps, no more, no less. Well, unless it rains, obviously, and only more if you have green-white checkers and so. But, besides all of that, I would honestly state that, unfortunately, because the caution flag comes out and they run about 5 to 7 laps, and those laps are counted, it kind of makes it feel like a big series sprint car race. And when I say big series, I'm not necessarily referring to a division of sprint car racing like the World of Outlaws or the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model division or anything like that. I'm saying big league in terms of the amount of money that it costs to build these cars and the drivers in the sport. I don't really feel that that's the best thing in NASCAR, but that's kind of small potatoes. I will also say, and this is something I can't really replicate or anything like that, I'm not a fan of the 5-minute crash clock. I think it's kind of stupid, and in some cases, I don't know. I know that in some areas, like especially if you have like an oil cooler go bad, you can technically go in, get service done, and go back out onto the racetrack and continue gaining laps. But I don't know. 5 minutes is a little bit slow, and I think that sometimes it really just kind of messes with things. Alright, so that's just a race-by-race basis. Let's actually get into the core of it, and that is the way that the championship is decided. So the way that NASCAR has it set up right now is that 26 races, drivers are racing, and every single event has 3 stages. At the end of each 3 stages, the winner of each stage wins 10 bonus points. Driver in second gets 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to 10th place, and 11th on back do not get any stage points. Okay. After those 25 races, or 26 races, a regular season champion is crowned. The regular season champion is the person who is on top of the points board at the end of, typically, I know that they changed it this year, it used to be Richmond. Richmond was the last race of the regular season. This year it was Indianapolis. A regular season champion is crowned, and then you go into the final 10 races of the season. The way that this now runs is every 3 races, drivers are bumped out. So I think it goes 15 drivers get in. Then after the 3rd race, so then we only have 7 races to go, I think. My math may be slightly off, but forgive me on that. You go from 15 drivers to 12 drivers. After another 3 drivers, 12 to 8. After Phoenix, as of the current schedule, the 8 drivers then shrink to 4. And when you shrink it to 4, those 4 drivers then go to Homestead, and they are the only ones who have a shot at winning the championship. That's it. If you're 5th place or lower, you do not get a shot to win the championship at the end of the season. I think this is a very poorly implemented system. Why do I feel this way? I feel that because especially the stage points still matter. Drivers still get stage points, whether you finish, even if you're out of it, you still get stage points in the top. If you're in the top 10, you still get those points, but you can no longer fight for the championship. In addition, I have two drivers I want to talk about briefly that I think, honestly, because of this elimination style, may have screwed their chances at winning a championship. Point number one. I do apologize, I am a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan, but there was something that I felt wrong about this when it happened. So they're racing at Talladega, and the race ends because I think Kevin Harvick hit someone who spun out, and it caused the race to end under caution. That was more of an issue with NASCAR's decision-making on racing in whole. But it was stupid. It was really, really stupid. And very controversial. And the driver who was in second place right when that whole debacle happened was Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr., at the end of Talladega, got knocked out of the chase because he didn't get into that precious transfer spot and was no longer eligible for a championship. Okay. The very next week, being knocked out of the championship by this system, but not mathematically, goes and wins Martinsville. He goes and he wins Martinsville. He gets the winner points, but he no longer can run for a championship. And why is that? Because he was eliminated. Because he was taken out due to the system. Another driver that I want to especially talk about. Last season, Kyle Larson. Larson had a very good season all in all. He was pretty strong. He was very consistent. And he honestly, very well, could have made it into the Final Four. Final race of this whole system. And we're in a place where he has to finish well in order to move on to the next round. And what happens? He blows his engine, and that's it. He's no longer in the hunt for a championship because he blew his engine and was, by NASCAR's design, locked out of the championship. If Larson went on a tear, and say, for example, won every single race from after Kansas onward, he still could not win the championship because he was locked out. The last thing that I will say, at least on this design is, and this is what's stupid to me, and really stupid in terms of what NASCAR wants to do, is they want to emulate a Game 7 moment for their sport to get as many eyes as they can on their television for the end of the season. They want to attract as many eyes as they can onto the screen for Homestead, because there's a 4-way tie for the championship, and whoever wins the race, whoever finishes the highest out of those 4 drivers, is crowned the champion. This does not work. This is a very poor system for racing. Why is that? There's too many variables associated with that. In baseball, in football, in basketball, you have 2 teams, 2 of the best teams for that year, go head to head, and they play a championship battle. And even in those sports, in the cases of baseball and basketball, there very well may be a chance that the game does not go to a Game 7 or a finals game or a literal last game of the season whatsoever, where it's tied evenly I'm going to have to use baseball for this because I don't watch basketball, but there are cases where you will not get a 3-3 team. A team in the 7 games has 3 wins and the other team has 3 wins, and it goes down right to the wire at the end of the season in a Game 7 moment for the World Series in baseball. That does not always happen. So why is NASCAR doing it? Because they want eyes. There's another problem with this. Unfortunately, and this really, really hurts the sport, it makes all 26 races pointless. Absolutely pointless. And honestly, in some extents, it makes almost the entire season completely pointless. Why is that? Because the 26 races, you could technically get yourself into the points situation and get into the playoffs. You could get into it, but you could blow it all away after 3 races, and you could have been the best car in those 26 races prior, and you no longer have a shot whatsoever. There's nothing to it. It shows that there's no consistency. You could piddle around and just barely make it in and just go forward in those final 10 races and luck your way into Homestead. Something happens to the leaders and you win the championship with the crappiest statistics for that season. And the fact that NASCAR decided we're going to award a regular season champion, and it really doesn't mean anything, it means nothing, actually. It's an empty cup that you get to take home because you still have 10 races left. You're not crowned the champion. It's a hollow victory. It's not worth it. It's worth nothing. It's absolutely worth nothing. Because, to give you an example, Kyle Busch was the regular season champion. Who wins the championship in 2018? It's Joey Logano. Kyle Busch was the fastest car out on the racetrack and was the best car out on the racetrack by the end of that 26th race, and he does not win the championship. So enough ranting about that. I've come up with an alternative idea for how to make this a little bit better. So let's talk about some of the tools that I'm using. First off, let's talk about this. This is NR Ratings version 4.1.0.0. Okay? Not really too much to talk about this, but it will explain how wonky some of these results are. Please bear with me, okay? I could have done this a heck of a lot better, and I do feel apologetic towards that, but I wish to explain this to you. What this program does is it goes into your system and it finds your NR 2003 folder. And what you do is you go and you pick a mod. Let's just go with the original 2003 Cup mod, since that's got just a few cars in it. This is all the regular cars for the most part. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so then you choose a roster. In this case, we've only got one roster, so, and I actually have been meaning to do this anyway. You go over here to import ratings from real life. And once again, this is the 2003 season. So this handy tool can take us all the way back to 1949 based off of the driver's results. So let's go down to 2003. A little bit too far. There we go. And then this is what you can do. You can select all, and this picks every single race, all 36 races from that season, and their results. And you can hit apply, and they will import the results and stats from all of those races into the driver's skill numbers, skill rating. And then if you honestly do, say that you only want to have the Daytona 500, you can just click each individual race and you can change it. You can also change the formula. I think I will need to change this sometime in the future because I think I kind of messed this up. I think it should actually be finishing ratings, not formula ratings under 2010. Yeah, and nicely enough, it does actually include the ratings here. So that's, sorry, it gives a description of it. So I'm going to stick with this because it's what I've been using all this time. And you can say as default. You can use a variable inspector here. I actually have not used this, so I'm a little bit blown away. And that's actually kind of cool. So we're going to pause that, and that's why. I think it's because I just have it clicked on Daytona. I do. So let's actually look at that variable inspector again. Oh, okay. Okay, whatever. Point being is we're going to do exactly what I did, and we'll go ahead and apply these ratings. Darn it. Okay. Okay. So the point is, I'm sorry to kind of ramble with this. The point is you can take ratings from real data and you can inject it into these car files, which is really cool to me. So while the setup can be changed a little bit, that's kind of beside the point. I did this with the 2018 car roster that I created for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series 2018 mod. Based off of the 2018 results, based off of the entire season, to give as best of a guesstimate as to how these cars would perform. Now remember, in this case, there are no, lucky dogs. There's nothing along the lines of double file restarts in the newer way. It's all the old system. So that's a limitation of the game, but I hope, at least, that it did a good job at replicating what this should show. So I only got through 10 races, but I think that this is enough of a demonstration to show you. Once again, just to double check and clarify and show this, in the old system, it was 5 laps for leading a lap, most laps led 5, pole bonus 5, lead at half 5. And then positions, that's how they were. Once again, as we go to optimal, we'll go ahead and show this. 1 point for leading the most laps, a pole bonus, and a lead at half bonus to make up for the removal of stages. I'd say that's actually pretty fair. So, positions there, and we're good. Like I said, did 10 races. So let's look at that. Give me one moment. Alright. Okay, here we go. So, let's actually move this all the way over here, and I can talk about this. And put the cam, there we go. Okay. Alright. Here's the schedule for the 10 races. At Daytona, you had the 11 win Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Jimmy Johnson, Trevor Bayne. At Atlanta, you had Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Eric Jones, Denny Hamlin, Ty Dillon. Las Vegas, Chase Elliott, Bubba Wallace, Martin Truex, Kevin Harvick, Austin Dillon. Phoenix, you had Harvick, Busch, Hamlin, Truex, Eric Jones. California, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Martin Truex, Clint Boyer, Alex Bowman. Race 6, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones, Daniel Suarez. Texas, you had Joey Logano, Eric Jones, Clint Boyer, Eric Almirola, Kyle Larson. Bristol, and this is the weird one, I wholly admit that. McMurray, Jamie McMurray, Casey Kane, Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, and Trevor Bayne. That one is weird, I wholly admit. Richmond, you have Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson. In Talladega, the last race that I did, because I was exhausted by this point, as it was probably like 4:30 in the morning, Ryan Newman, Cole Witt, surprisingly, Harvick, Hamlin, and, surprisingly, AJ Allmendinger. We all know that Talladega can be a bit of a crapshoot anyway, so kind of is what it is, you know. Alright, let's look at the standings, though. So after Daytona, 43-1, and one other core thing that I did mean to mention is generally about 39 to 40 drivers that are competing each and every week. Harrison Rhodes did not race, so he got 0 points. He didn't race. So, you know, Daytona, it always generally sets it up that this is the driver that ends up, the winner of the race usually ends up being the points leader anyway. So this is really not much of a surprise. It's the race results with just points thrown at the end of it. Alright, so this is where we're going to get into race 2. And this is where some shakeup happens. Jimmy Johnson gains 2 positions. William Byron gained 3. Ryan Blaney lost 2 positions. But Kyle Larson gained 12. Gained 12 positions. Led 11 laps. And didn't get on the pole, but he did get a top 10. He got a top 10 and a top 5. I was looking at the wrong thing. He led 16 laps. Okay, so he gained 12 positions. Other big movers. Eric Jones, he did not have a good race at Daytona. He moved up 16 positions. That's fair. Ty Dillon moved up positions as well, because remember, there is only 1 point separating each and every position, which is good. You can move up and you can fluctuate in points pretty quickly. If you were to win races back to back, that's 2 points that you have over second place. But if you finish 4th and the driver ahead of you finishes 2nd, that point deficit is wiped out completely. So, Denny Hamlin, as of race 1, into race 2, is leading the points, but he's only leading by 7 points. We go into race 3. There's a change. Hamlin didn't have a great race and ended up dropping to 4 positions to 5th place. He's 11 points out. And when you look at it here, all drivers, honestly, from 24th, which is a tie for 23rd position between Bayne and Logano, they all mathematically could have a shot at taking the points lead over. All mathematically could have a shot at getting back into the points lead. They just need to win. And there needs to be some changes happen here in the middle between all these drivers. We go into race 4. Kyle Larson, he gained a position in the points. Denny Hamlin, good race, gained 3. Kyle Busch, he wrecked out at Daytona. I didn't show you guys that. But he wrecked out at Daytona and he has skyrocketed 9 positions from the previous week to now. Look at this too. Chase Elliott shot up 10 positions. Matt DiBenedetto, and this is where the weirdness comes in. I don't think Matt DiBenedetto would be in the top 10 in points, but he shot up 12 positions. So, okay, there's that. Let's hit the halfway point of this. Martin Truex Jr. shoots up to the top of the board and gains 2 positions. And look here once again. Positions 12th on up still mathematically have a shot at this moment for the championship lead. Anything could happen in the next race, and things do. Eric Jones gains 3 positions. Kyle Busch gains 4 positions. Denny Hamlin, loser, out of here, drops 4 positions. Kyle Larson drops 3 positions. Jimmy Johnson and Daniel Suarez gain 4 positions. Ryan Blaney, after a stagnation earlier in the season, where he just had a string of bad races, shot up 9 spots. 9 spots! And yes, he's 48 points out of it, but he's also in close battle with Kurt Busch. If Blaney were to finish 7 positions higher than Kurt Busch in the next race, he would tie him, or go any higher, and he surpasses him. Alright, that's race 6. Truex is on top of the board. Go into the next race. A bit of change too. Drivers are shuffling around. Paul Menard gained a position. Larson and Hamlin gained 3. There really wasn't much of a change up here at the very top, but it is what it is. But there's also a small points difference between second and the leader. 7 points. You go into the next race. Truex still atop of the board. Still atop of the board. However, Chase Elliott, with 2 wins this season, is now runner-up, and he's 23 points out of it. Technically, at this point, drivers 6th on up still have a shot at hunting down the champion. Go into the next race. Well, Denny Hamlin just moved pretty fierce from 6th place to 3rd. And he's 31 points out. Chase Elliott lost a little bit of ground. He's 13 points out of it. But he's close. He's very close. He could very well beat him. And we go into the final race that I have done this point system with. It's 17 points separating Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. Yes, Truex managed to increase his points lead by a little bit, but Chase Elliott is still within striking distance. Hamlin's still within striking distance. At this moment, Kyle Larson is out of it. If he were to qualify dead last and make it all the way up to the front, he would not be able to win the championship if it stopped at 10 races. But look at what you're seeing here. Now, once again, the ratings are a little bit messed up. There are limitations to this game. There's problems with it in terms of how things react. I don't really understand how in the world Jamie frickin' McMurray managed to go and win Bristol. In fact, I do actually want to take a look at this. We can look at each event. You can look at this pretty easy. You look here, McMurray won, and he led 102 laps. He led 102 laps, and he gained 43 points from where he was sitting. Like I said, I'm not saying that this system is perfect, but one bad race, and you can lose so much ground. Let's look at Talladega for a minute. Now, Ryan Newman led 22 laps, and Kevin Harvick led 48. And the one thing that I did forget to mention earlier too is these are 100% races. They're not shortened in any capacity. They're 100% completed races. So the Daytona 500, a full 200 laps. I just accelerated everything. But these are the results. You know, like I said, they're a little wonky in terms of how the driver ratings go or how the track handled or so. But the point is, in the core of all of this. You know, we look at Talladega, Ryan Newman was your big mover, and justifiably, he did gain positions. He gained 8 positions. If he continued on that train, he very well could get higher and higher and higher into the points. Yet at the same time, what I want to state as well is notice here, Truex has been on top of the board since race 5. He's held the points lead for 5 races in a row. And his points lead continues to grow, but not by an extreme amount. Let me state this. I completely understand where newer fans look at the old point system and they have frustrations with it. They have disdain for it. Because the driver very well could win the championship with 2 races to go with 500 points between him and second place. There's no way a driver could be able to make up that difference. But if you change the point values and you shift some stuff around, you can have a closer points battle. Once again, like I said, as I've said in the beginning, there's only a 1 point difference between first and second place. That's it. You could have a driver run into problems and you could make a massive amount of gains on them. Even if you don't win the race, you can close in that points lead. And that's kind of what it is to the core. I'm not going to say that this system is perfect, but I think it would put us on a better path. And if you eliminate the chase format and just have the drivers race for the 36 races, you could technically still have very close points battles. You could have someone wreck out at Phoenix and then have an issue at Homestead. And someone else who has been reasonably consistent can still win the championship. The one big core thing that I also want to mention, and this is probably one of the last things I will say, is every NASCAR championship pre-chase was not an absolute runaway fest. Some of them were. Some of them definitely were. But the driver was also consistent. And the core thing that I want to mention here too is this as well. Going back to the oldest points format in regards to the original Winston Cup era, is Alan Kulwicki, a driver who really had no real chance for a chunk of the season to win the championship, ended up winning the championship because his car did not die. Because drivers ahead of him had issues. When you think about this, the drivers in the 1992 championship running were Bill Elliott, Alan Kulwicki, Davey Allison, Harry Gant, and Kyle Petty. Not necessarily in that order, but you had 5 drivers who mathematically could win the championship, provided their competitors had an issue. And that is exactly what happened. Drivers can make mistakes. They can get into accidents. And it can be costly. So costly in terms of winning a championship. It's consistency that should be awarded. Not being able to pull off a strong string at the right time, or in holding your stuff safe and ready to go for 26 races and then just flip a switch and go out and win the last 10. Or be able to coast your way and just manage to kind of luck your way into the final 4 and then go on a tear and win the final race of the season. NASCAR has an issue with this, and it's something that a lot of older fans, myself included, really can't get behind. We don't like seeing a driver just kind of manage to somehow get into the championship. And I will honestly say, because I've played NASCAR Heat 3 before, and it's demoralizing to go into the final race of the elimination and not make it. It sucks terribly. It really does. But there's a better way to go about this. Is this perfect like I've said all this time? No, this is not 100% perfect. but it at least puts us on a slightly better path going forward as to how to award drivers for their consistency, and with the hopes that the most consistent driver will be your champion. NASCAR right now, unfortunately, is too gimmicky, it's too frustrating, and it unfortunately really decreases the value of the entire season when all that really matters is the final 10 races of the season. Or if you're really cynical and really just don't want to watch any of it, just wait until Homestead. It's part of the reason that NASCAR, I feel, is losing its fans. It's part of the reason why TV ratings are down. It's part of the reason why not as many fans are going to the track. Beyond all the other core things that is wrong with the sport in terms of expenses, in terms of everything else that's going on, NASCAR really started to lose me when they went to this elimination style. Yes, it provided some thrills, but unfortunately I think it cheapens the aspect of what racing is. And that's all I can say about it.